What impact are you hoping, this summit will have, especially on Made in Nigeria? Because Made in Nigeria, some people will say the campaign has been on for forever. Is it that, do we have any research saying that Nigerians are not willing to buy their own products? Or is it that, there are certain things that have stood in the way of Nigerians being able to purchase Made in Nigeria products?
Yeah. Sometimes you can say the same thing over and over again, but if there's a crisis, some messages get better understood. So I'm saying that the fact that the country is in a recession, the fact that we have a foreign currency crisis, more and more Nigerians are looking inwardly. More and more Nigerians are looking for domestic tourist opportunities rather than traveling. That on its own is a sector which other countries make it a major foreign exchange earner. So I believe that this is the right time to refocus Nigeria's attention on Made in Nigeria.
This might be a little extraneous, but it might not be excluded. Do you think it is something that the corporate world can do in terms of also encouraging, say, for instance, Made in Nigeria clothing?
Yes, it's not only clothing, it's everything. And I think, corporate Nigeria as well is also an important partner to ensure that we help support this campaign and not only Made in Nigeria, but to encourage Make in Nigeria.
You also spoke about access to credit, how young people like to move to creatives where you don't need huge amounts of credit to start. What kind of conversation will happen at the NESG about that, allowing them access credit?
Yes. Well, so tomorrow we have various breakout sessions. We have parallel sessions that focus on ICT, on the SME sector, on microcredit, on services, on finance. And, these issues will be discussed. There are quite a few young people also in attendance at the summit. And they will discuss, they will debate. This is a platform, to encourage the kind of debate that solutions can be found. And the beauty of it is that you have both the public sector and the private sector in the debate, so that ultimately, after this annual event, the real work starts, which is where the policy commissions, and we have policy commissions, in agriculture, in energy, in manufacturing, in services, they sit down, roll up their sleeves, and they're composed of both public sector and private sector people, and actually work out, what does this mean? How do we get this into policy? How do we need to change laws? For instance, last year we introduced a National Assembly dialogue, and that also continues this year, because we have come to understand that, if you don't have the right laws that enable economic growth, then you really are not able to move at the speed at which you need to.
Tell us, let's get your impression about this matter. It's been out there for a while, and that is the fact they say that the banks usually don't just give them long-term credits, loan facilities, which is what they require, but it's usually on a short-term basis. Is this correct, and why is that?
Well, it's due to the structure of the deposit and assets of the industry. It's skewed towards the short term. So banks also have to manage their balance sheet. If their deposits are primarily short term, they can't afford to have a mismatch. So there's some structural adjustments that need to take place. But I think fundamentally the issue is the interest rate, and the small and medium enterprises being able to afford to pay such interest rates. But
shouldn't it be a simultaneous approach? If we are able to reduce the interest rate, shouldn't we also be seeking to address that challenge about accessing loans on a long-term basis? Sure,
we're getting there, and there have been improvements. So that, for instance, if you look at mortgages, today you can get mortgages of 15 years, even 20 years, It was almost impossible 10 years ago to do that. The funds coming in from the pension sector, which are long-term, has helped to shift that balance, and it will continue to do so. So it is both. You are very correct. The aim will be bring down inflation, begin to lower interest rates, and as much as possible, elongate tenors that you can give. But private equity is also an important contributor to investments, and you find out that many small and medium enterprises, they start with private capital, and then the bank funding supports that.
What would you consider as our biggest impediment to bringing down the interest rate?
The biggest impediment is the fact that the risk-free interest rate is in the double digits. Now, if the risk-free interest rate is in double digits, then to lend to an asset that has risk, you put a spread on top of the risk-free interest rate. So we have to, together the government has to work towards bringing down the risk-free interest rate. And as the central bank continues to focus on ensuring that from a monetary policy perspective, that inflation, is gradually brought down, then we'll be moving in the right direction.
All right, we'll get more perspective from you in just a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. So does the NESG, you say yes, they will help in formulating policies. How do they usually just bridge that gap between the private sector and the public sector so that the policies that are formulated at the public level works for the private sector?
Yes. So like I mentioned, the policy commissions, which is the operating arm of the NESG, continues after the summit, and those commissions comprise both public sector and private sector participants. Therefore, issues on that pertain to each of those policy commissions, so agriculture, for instance, they discuss it, the impediments to doing business, what they would like to see in terms of an enabling environment, and this ultimately is used to contribute to policy. The NESG is not involved in policy making, like we said, we're just a platform to encourage the debate and open conversations, but we believe that our input, is used in terms of policy formulation.
So what about the kind of persons that we'll be having? I think we should, officials, customs, export promotion councils, we expect all of these participants to be present, aren't they?
Oh yes, like we said, with Mr. President joining us this morning, we expect that all the ministers would be here, and all the relevant private sector focused MDAs in government. The Nigerian economy requires everybody to be working together, and more importantly, aligned to the same goal. We all want the same thing. We want a growing economy. We want an economy where jobs are growing, where our GDP is growing. And the debate is, how do you get there? What is the best way by which we can achieve the Nigeria of our dreams? And we believe that it is private sector-led growth. Private sector-led growth that is export-oriented, that taps into the productive base of the Nigerian economy and encourages production and consumption of Nigerian goods.
So what do you think the private sector will be pushing for the most at the summit?
The private sector is going to be pushing for the markets, to be opened in a way that it is easy to conduct business. So that if you ask any manufacturer or producer today, what is my main challenge? We'll probably say right now, foreign exchange, and we need to quickly put that behind us so that we can all focus on the more important thing of ensuring that we add value to the Nigerian economy. And work has already started, like I said, on that, and we expect to see further progress so that ultimately we have a situation where at the right price, flows of foreign exchange in and out of the economy can take place. And apart from the foreign exchange market, you also have other financial markets, the equity markets, both debt capital, the debt capital markets, the money markets. All these markets require liquidity to function effectively. They require transparency, they require openness. And I believe that as we work towards that, the desired outcome, will be realized.
Thank you for coming on this morning, Mr. Shola. David Boa is the Vice Chairman of the NESG. And as you've heard, it will be an interesting conversation, so you shouldn't miss it. It starts today and it will end on the 12th of October. Well, Sunrise Daily came to you live from Abuja, where the 22nd edition of the Nigeria Economic Summit is scheduled to hold. Well, thank you for watching. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Well, thank you. I'm Maokbe Ogun.
Many thanks. I'm Sulaiman Alede.